of its workers. White-collar staff and members of the General, Municipal and Boilermakers Union say they won't accept a pay offer of just under 6%. The company, which makes all kinds of cable from telephone lines to reinforced cable for the offshore industry, says the offer can't be improved upon. Jim Knight has this report.
It's now 3 weeks since GMB officials announced the results of a secret ballot at AEI, when nearly 95% of the members voted to take strike action unless the company came up with an improved offer. It hasn't, and from 6 o'clock this morning, the vast majority of the workforce was out on strike.
I think we've been treated disgustingly because we've worked all the shift patterns he's asked, we've worked all the overtime what he's asked, we've bent over backwards for them, and they just don't seem to be putting any loyalty into the workforce.
And if you think of the way the prices have risen and everything else, 5% is no good to anybody around here. I mean, if prices were down by 5%, probably everybody would be happy, but they're not.
How long are you prepared to strike to get the offer you want?
As long as it takes. We are adamant in that aspect.
You seem to have to think about that.
Yeah. We don't want to strike, nobody wants to strike. But as it comes to this, you know, we're just not satisfied with what we've been offered all the way through, you see.
Obviously, I'd like this dispute settled now, today, but we'll stay here as long as it takes. It's up to the company. We've left the door open to negotiations. We're hoping that they'll come back and make us an offer which will get our members back to work as quickly as possible.
What sort of response have you had from management?
To date, the response has been that they're not prepared to meet our claim. They were well aware, they've had notice, 3 weeks notice that we were taking strike action today, and they haven't responded in any substantial way to our claim.
So given that, it wouldn't look very hopeful, would it?
As far as the company is concerned, this is a demonstration this morning, not only in terms of the strike, but in terms of the mass picket we've had here. And hopefully the company will take this on board and recognise the strength of feeling behind this action today.
150 people did still go into work today, along with management and 50 non-union members. Another 60 men from the two other main unions represented at the plant, the AUEW and the EETPU, were working today. However, both those unions are balloting their members later in the week, and it's expected they'll vote to join the strike. The Director of Personnel here, Colin Griffiths, declined to be interviewed on camera, but told me the management had made their position perfectly clear to the unions. The recession, he said, and the company's current trading position meant the existing pay offer was not negotiable.
The factory at Birtley on Tyneside are striking to press home a claim for an 8% pay rise. They've been offered 6%. The company says if they're not back at work by Monday, they'll be sacked. The strikers say they're willing to risk that. Jim Knight reports.
As they arrived for today's mass meeting at the Birtley Community Centre, the strikers didn't disguise their contempt for the latest offer they'd been made. These men and women have been on strike for nearly 3 weeks, living off £21 a week strike pay. As the first workers emerged from the secret ballot, it became apparent that it will take more than 6% to encourage them to end their action.
Hey, what a decent pay rise, man. We've got 190 odd pound on top. It's not worth gunning in for, man.
This company, they've made £100 million over the past year, and we want our share. Right? I think we're due to that. We deserve it.
Is it worth risking your job for?
Yes.
We're voting against it. You've got to. You cannot have him putting it down again like he has done over the last 3-4 years.
Prepared to risk your job?
Well, the union says they're going to fight for jobs. One goes back, we all go back, so that's the way it'll be.
The GMB, there were 453 votes cast.
The result of the secret ballot showed that more than 90% had voted to stay out.
The message most certainly must go to the employer, and the employer must recognise that the only way to resolve this particular dispute is to sit round the negotiating table and come to terms with our members' pay conditions claim.
But 6% is final, say the company. The spokesman said the money simply isn't there to pay the workforce anymore. If the workforce hadn't made their message to the management abundantly clear with today's vote, then they certainly intend to do so on Monday. Then the unions are planning a mass picket.
The future of the plant. Management had threatened to sack anyone who didn't turn up for work this morning. Even so, the vast majority of the workforce are still on strike. They're demanding a 9% pay rise in line with inflation. Management says its 6% offer is final. Jim Knight reports.
Today's failure to return to work, despite the threat of dismissal, could hardly have surprised even the most optimistic member of the management team. At a secret ballot last week, the workforce had voted in overwhelming fashion to stay out. Today they did just that, and whilst hundreds did turn up for the 5:30 a.m. shift, it was only to briefly picket the main gate. Plans for a rally and march through Birtley had to be postponed till later in the week at the request of the police. Union leaders described today's resolute stand as a firm message to the management. The workforce would not bow to intimidation and threats.
I don't know if you've ever been in the position of being threatened with a sack, but when you are, it's your livelihood, your domestic circumstances, everything is affected by that. For the kind of support we've had here this morning, showing the resolve of the workforce, it's absolutely amazing. I'm over the moon with the response this morning, and I just hope the company take that as a measure of the resolve of my members.
Management has said all along that the cable industry is suffering very badly at the moment. It says the strike has already meant that a £600 million investment in Birtley, which would have brought greater long-term security, has now had to be scrapped. The 6% pay offer is final. The company says it's all it can afford. No one from the management was prepared to be interviewed on camera today, but a spokesman did confirm that, as they had warned last week, anyone who had not started their shift this morning had effectively terminated their own contracts. With the strike now into its fourth week, he said valuable orders were slipping away every day. In the light of that, management were now...
Jobs. The company has started sending out P45s to the 750 strikers who are demanding a pay rise of almost 9%. Tony Belmont reports on this latest development.
Pickets were out in force outside the Birtley factory again today in a show of defiance against the company's latest move. Talks aimed at settling the dispute broke down at ACAS earlier this week, and the decision to send out P45s has angered the strikers.
I've been with the company for 25 years. In my opinion, I've given loyal service to the company. Because I've had the audacity to come out on strike, I received that in the post this morning.
What does that mean to you then?
Well, it just shows what the company think of you. You know, you're just a number. You don't, you know, you're nothing to them. Like I say, after 25 years service.
One of the unions involved in the dispute says the workers were told they'd lost their jobs 2 weeks ago. So the sending out of P45 notices came as no surprise.
We're aware that the company intend to dismiss all of its workers, and we've been expecting that for 2 weeks. It's just a further move by the company to try and intimidate people back to work.
No one would be interviewed on camera on behalf of the company, but a statement was issued. It says that since the dispute started nearly 5 weeks ago, the recession in the cable industry has worsened, and